Game mechanics are one of the things that I think have made Rise of Kingdoms so special, but also so frustrating. And I haven't seen anyone do any kind of game mechanic that covers this or breaks down like what we like, what we dislike. And so I'm going to start off the top and just kind of run through what the different game mechanics we have here. On the left is iconic. That's like the iconic crystals. That's the iconic upgrades. Then we also have the equipment. Equipment was a major update that came to Rise of Kingdoms, and it messed up a lot within the game, especially if you've been here. But I do think it added a lot of value, so we'll break into that. The next thing we have is going to be like formations and armaments. Actually, this is armaments specifically. We have formations down lower down there. I think armaments have been new. They've been exciting. I don't know that anyone except for Bus Driver truly understands them just yet, but that's okay. And then we have Tides of War KVK. I really wanted to include some of the different KVK types here for a couple reasons. One, I think they really mix up the game. If we were all playing Heroic Anthem 15 times in a row, I think we would probably all quit. But fortunately, that's not what we're doing. And so I wanted to include these KVK mechanics. I think they keep the game exciting, and I think it also gives Lilith a little bit of feedback as to whether they should continue what they're doing or they should stop doing certain things. We also have the poison mechanic, which is a combat mechanic, which I have always been a big fan of. I think it's really interesting. They first introduced it with Tamiris, and she's just legendary. And now they have it with Herman, which also just is peak. And we have Smite. But Smite has also been a really big game changer with Gorgo and Luce. It's diversified the type of combat we have. You have skill bonuses. You don't have skill bonuses. And I think it makes things really, really fun. So there's Smite. And then we also have ranged combat, which we just spoke a little bit about, but I think ranged combat has been fun. It's been challenging, but it's been fun. We've got artifacts. We have crystal tech here. We have museum buffs. That's this one that's right next to artifacts. We have stratagems. Storm of Stratagems is another KVK type that allows you to, switch up different skills, and you can add a bunch of different functionality to it. I have a whole video breaking down Storm of Stratagems. Civilizations. I think Civilizations is super underrated, but it's been here forever, and no one's ever actually looked at, is the civilization mechanic working? Does it actually do anything for the game? We also have VIP, KVK Light versus Darkness with KVK Tech, talent trees, formations, crystal tech, and the sovereign key, legendary key, that whole functionality that we have in the game. And that's the legendary Tavern. So with that, Gaines, you tell me, what do you want to start with here?
Let's start with equipment.
With equipment. Okay. So we've got the Ring of Doom as our representation of equipment in Rise of Kingdoms. Where do you think this should really fall within S tier, A tier, all that good stuff?
I'm going to put it in A tier. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite implementation of the game, but I think it adds some diversity into the game where it does kind of separate players. But then once you get further into, we'll talk about iconics here as well, but then also just looking into upgrading that equipment, that's kind of when it changes. So what I'm referring to is just equipment as a whole, or just at its base point, not so much as the upgrades to that equipment.
So you think it's A tier?
I would put A or S, yeah.
I'll put it in A tier. I think we'll have some more exciting stuff, but I do think by and large equipment was a good addition to the game, with the exception that it did make it so normal people can no longer be rally leads, which to this day I'm still a little salty about, but I guess, that ship has kind of sailed at this point.
I mean, okay. I'd probably argue that it's not equipment that did that. It's the upgrade system to equipment and crystal technology. Because
I think so too.
You and me both, we probably could be rally leads if there was no crystal tech and if there were no upgrades to that equipment system, because we have some of the best equipment in the game, but we don't have the upgrades to that equipment to make it the absolute best it could be.
Exactly. It's the power creep. The gap keeps growing, and so you can't really close it. And that crystal tech, let's do crystal tech. I want to know what you think of this one.
Yeah, I'm in between C tier and remove it, because I don't think removing it is realistic whatsoever. because obviously that's how they make almost all their money. So they're not going to remove it ever. But I think there should be an option to play KVK without it. And they basically just took away the ability to do that, migrating back to KVK2. And so, or at least for most players, they removed it. So I would put it at C tier just because I'm realistic and know that they will never remove it.
Yeah, I want to see what chat thinks too. I'm including them in this. I want to hear from you what you think about all of our choices here. I agree. I would probably put it in C tier because, again, I don't think it's realistic that they're going to remove it as much as I wish they would. But I do, my frustration is right now, if you are in the late game, you don't actually get a choice anymore. And that feels unfair a little bit because you do get a lot of free-to-play players. I'm not free-to-play. You're not free-to-play. But I do think there should be the option for you to actually go ahead and, you know, not have to spend money in order to play KVK. And that could be cool for like a farming KVK or anything like that, right? So, yeah, I think that would have been nice, but it is what it is at this point. And I think we're just kind of stuck. Do you think tech makes things more or less boring?
I think that there could be a way to make crystal technology without it being like player by player spending levels. Because you know you do have light and darkness KVK on the tier here as well. I think having a KVK season conquest option to be able to like contribute to the kingdom wide crystal tech, I think that would be really interesting. Because you know you're still gonna have like the whales spending money, and maybe it gives them some extra bonus to do that. But instead of having like an individual player by player crystal tech, I think having a kingdom wide crystal tech would be a good option to have, kind of like a light versus darkness type KVK in Season of Conquest.
I totally agree. I mean, we have so many people that hate on light versus darkness, and like, yes, the map sucks. There's not enough combat. I'll give it to you, right? I read through the comments on my last video. They were not very nice, but it's okay. But I do have to say, right, the light versus darkness KVK tech, I kind of liked it. Like for me, I would bring that into other KVKs and other KVK aspects. I don't know. I think for me, I would put it like B to A tier. Where do you sit?
Oh, I would put that in S tier, honestly.
Ooh, that's a hot take. I actually agree because I think it's just, it's a nice way to mix things up. And I believe, keep me honest, chat, but I believe with KVK Tech, you actually can donate gems to help improve your KVK Tech. So if you do have whales, you can still have that aspect. Okay, what do you want to do next here, Gains?
We'll do the iconic crystal since that's kind of a gap right there.
Okay. Kind of a gap as in you think it should be B tier or you think it should be removed?
I'm glad you got that pun. I'm gonna put it at B tier. I think it's an interesting concept to give you some extra buffs, but I don't love how like the upgrade system after the iconic crystal kind of took place. So the iconic crystal system as a whole I enjoy, but the upgrade system past the iconic crystal I don't love.
See, that's interesting. I feel like Iconics never really got their moment in the sun, right? You had that first event that came out when Iconic Crystals came out, and then they were like the Iconic upgrade system. But the Iconic upgrade system doesn't actually require Iconic Crystals anymore. And so it's like they had this idea and they put it in the game, and then they're like, well, it's in the game now, we can't take it away. And I feel that's how I feel. Like I'm somewhere between B and C tier with this, where it's like you never really did anything with them. Like I feel like for tier 5 iconic crystals, like make me have another iconic crystal to get it to tier 5. Like do something.
Yeah, I know. Because like I'm at the point where every single piece of my equipment, because I have all legendaries right now for all 5 of my marches, and I can't put another iconic crystal on because every single piece is iconic crystal. And so now every single one I get, it's like I don't even need this because there's no point for me to have it because I don't require it to upgrade anything. And so like the incentive of getting them is like I don't really care because I don't need it.
Yeah, I'll put it in B tier. For me, I think it's probably a C tier, but we can leave it in B just to fill the gap there. Let's dive into one that I think is probably a little bit controversial. Let's talk about civilizations, right? The whole foundation of this game is Rise of Kingdoms. You have a civilization, it's supposed to matter, right? Where do we think it sits?
I mean, I think that civilizations is something that isn't really talked about at all. Even though it's, I mean, I would call it a pretty big part of how you perform.
Mm-hmm.
Because I personally use France right now, just because I want to save on healing speed ups. But I think that it's like something that people don't really consider except for the very beginning of the game. That's like the only time I really hear questions about it of like, what should I start with?
Yeah,
But you don't really hear about it in the late game because everyone's either Germany for off season, France for fighting if you're open field, or Ottoman if you're rally lead. So there's not a
100%.
whole lot of diversity in the late game, more so just the beginning of the game on trying to improve your account.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame because I remember I put up a suggestion recently in chat. I want to hear your opinion on this. I put up a suggestion recently that they should buff certain commanders based upon the civilization that you have. Because I feel like there are the buffs that you have for the civilization, which actually take a lot of the fun out of it. Like for me, I think there's aesthetic aspects of the civilizations. I think the unit types, I think the history is cool. That kind of gets pushed to the side, which I'm not a fan of. But like, imagine if you chose England and your Boudica got a buff, or if you chose China and Sun Tzu got a buff, right? That would, I think, really
Mm-hmm.
mix things up and change the dynamic of the game in a way that you could start increasing the value of commanders as they arrive, because again, they're all going to arrive with a certain civilization over time. And so, like, I think it'd be really cool. I think it's a nice way to like spice things up. Oh wow, thank you, Lambo. Huge thank you for that. That means a ton. I also do agree Transmutation Stones do need to be replaced absolutely right now. I got 3. It
Mm-hmm.
killed me. Huge thank you, Lambo. But yeah, Gaines, what do you think of civs? What should they be doing?
I think that'd be a cool concept with like that buffing. Um, Kind of like the museum buffs where it buffs certain commanders. I think if it was like a couple different commanders, like with like Scipio, for example, with using Rome,
Mm-hmm.
if if that buffed Scipio Prime, because they're the same commander, I think that'd be cool. Because they're adding these prime commanders, but there's no correlation between the buffs that you get from civilizations and the commanders right now. Even though like you unlock that commander right away at the beginning of the game, there's not really any reason to be like, oh yeah, this is Scipio's civilization. It doesn't
Oh yeah,
really
isn't
matter,
that weird? Scipio's like a leadership commander in the early game, and Rome is all infantry. So it's not even like
Mhm.
okay. So where are we putting this, Gaines?
I'd put it at B, just because
You'd put
it's
it
like
B.
it could be improved, but it also could be worse.
Okay, that's fair. Now you mentioned
And
museum
also,
buffs. What do you think?
yeah, museum buffs.
Yeah.
I love museum buffs. I think that they could be stronger though. Um, I mean, obviously there's some that are pretty good, like MetMed or YSG. Like both those are really solid. But I would love to see like Alexander the Great get a bigger one, or Guan
Hmm.
Yu get a bigger one. Attila, these commanders that are like just on the verge of being really good, but their museum buff is just subpar, and so it
Yeah.
like didn't really change how good they were in the open field, besides a couple of extra stats.
I agree, and I think it's funny because we talk about how Lilith really wants to make money, right? That's what we're all here for, is to spend money on this game. But what intrigues me is museum buffs were the perfect opportunity for Lilith to take commanders that are not gold key commanders that require investment and make them ridiculously OP. Like, what would you do if they gave Charlemagne a buff that made him the best rally lead in the game, right? And then they're
Yeah,
releasing
I
two
mean, people
commanders
would
like a
have to
month
max
later.
them.
You have to max him. So, like, you're going to get your whales spending more money, and you have to get people unlocking these museum buffs. Like, I feel like that's such a missed opportunity.
I think it's something they'll take advantage of in the future, but I think right now, like you said, it's a missed opportunity for them.
So, where are you putting it?
Mm, I'd put it at A tier, just
I
because I
think I
think it
would
could be
too.
improved, but I really like the concept.
I like the concept. I like the intention. I think I think the actual application has been lacking. I feel like it's been one of those things where it's like, we're just gonna do it and make the free to play happy. But it's like, you could make money off this, and you're making a mistake.
But they do need to make it easier to get those coins or
Those
whatever.
coins, those coins are impossible.
Because you used to get them in pre KVK, now you don't get any in pre KVK. I don't think.
No, you only get them through like the different civilization events that you can redeem those epic, like the different things for.
And you only get like 10.
Yeah, not enough to do anything with.
No. But they're like, oh well, there's this $1 bundle you can get every single day. And it's like, no one's getting that unless like you give them a reason to get it, but no one wants to get that.
Exactly. Oh, that would be terrible. Imagine if they did make like one of the commanders in the museum get an absurd buff that brings them into the meta, and all the whales have just been like, oh yeah, I already used all my coins on everyone else. That would suck. That would be amazing to watch, but it would suck.
One thing too I want to talk about before that Lambo mentioned with the transmutation crystals, like the transmutation stones in that crystal inscription shard chest or whatever, that is like the worst thing ever. Like I think that was the most upset I've been opening something ever in Rise of Kingdoms.
They got you too?
Yes.
Oh,
I sent like a
man.
very long message in our group chat with all the other content creators, and I think Lambo responded to it as well. But I don't think they even like responded to my message about it.
Yeah, they got me too. I was so angry. I think I got 3 after saving it up for that long. I have a video on it actually that it's just in my backlog, but it's rough. It's really, really rough. If I could add like a thing here for inscription chests, I would put them on remove it or C tier. Like it has to.
You know what I'd rather have happen? I'd rather get one of those Razor scooters to the shin than open one of those things.
Oh God. That would be pretty brutal. Damn. I missed that one. Shh. I sent it to you, Gaines, and you didn't tell me. Oh well. Okay.
What was that?
I said I sent you the tier list, and you didn't. I missed Transmutation Stones and Inscription Shards. Oh well.
Oh, you should have put it on there.
Next time. So let's talk about Armaments, right? Because this is all within the greater theme of the fact that Armaments release was meh. Where do you think they sit?
I'm leaning toward remove it, but that's obviously never going to happen. I'd probably put it at B tier.
I think so too.
I was gonna say C, but I think it's an interesting concept just because of the like different types of what do you even call them, formations. I like the formations more than like the armaments.
Well, we have formations separately, so we can rank.
We do.
Those
Okay, all right. I won't talk too much about formations then. But with the armaments, I think that it's way too like luck based. It feels like it's just like a lottery where you have a chance of getting extremely lucky and you have like a 99.9% chance of getting absolute crap. And I don't love that it's basically just like
a lottery.
What do you call it?
Yeah.
Basically like a lottery or like a slot machine. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, I have that same frustration. I think it's just one of those things where it didn't feel like it was fully fleshed out when they released it. And it got me because like the whole concept of inscriptions was a mistake. Like I like the idea of the buffs. I like the idea that you can have, different tiers of armaments, but the fact that you can only add inscriptions to the scroll, like that's why. That's such a mistake.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Like,
and then you can only add one.
You can only add one
if you take,
even though you can have 2.
One. Yeah.
And you can't get
3,
any others.
No, you can only have 2. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, like I think the stupidest concept with it is that if you have one that you have an inscription on, you can't add another one onto it. Which I don't understand that concept.
Right. That bothers me. And again, the fact that like there are 4 pieces of armaments and you can only add an inscription manually to one of them. It just...
Yeah. And I don't know if it's just like luck that I have, but the only ones that I've gotten like good stats on and good armaments, like my best armaments, are the ones that you can add the inscription onto. So I can't even like if I got
Shocker.
like 100 inscription right now, I could not add it without sacrificing an already very, very good like inscription.
Yeah. So where are we putting this? B tier?
Uh I'll say C tier.
I'm going to as well. Only because it's half baked, right? I think that's what
Yeah.
kills me is it's half baked. Like
It
guys,
has
just
too many
fix
improvements
it.
that it needs.
Okay, so we can talk formations now because it's in the same vein. What do you think about formations?
Formations I like. Um I like how there's the different buffs. I like the V formation. Um, I like the versatility that you can add, like with the march speed. The new one they just added for like reinforcing, that you can put on like your farm accounts or on like a filling march. So I like that concept
Mm-hmm.
a lot more than the armament system. So I'd probably put the formation system at like an A, but I
Yeah,
think they kind of botched it with the armament system.
I agree. I also think that with the formation system, like the reason formations aren't an S in my opinion is because certain buffs are so much more OP than others. Like the reduced damage taken
Yep.
one, the hollow square, if they had made that, I think it's like 2 or 3%. If they had made that more,
Two.
if they had made it like, I don't know, 5%, or if they had made it even 3%, it might have been more appealing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not because I can't do that.
Two
And
percent
like,
is kind of negligible.
exactly. And there are a couple others like echelon formation, like a buffing march.
Yeah,
Like, come
worthless.
on. You guys so could have done better with that. And like triple line formation,
Or
that
like
one's fine.
testudo formation, which takes less like 5% less damage when you have a shield, but and like you increase healing, but that's only good for like what,
Richard.
Richard?
Yeah, it's just Richard.
That's about
Richard
it.
and Martel.
Yeah.
And the circle formation, like that was you didn't need that. Like you just introduced the testudo formation. What why?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they could have done better, which is the only reason this isn't S tier. Cause it's good, but not great.
No,
Okay.
I almost want to put the circle formation on Hugh for chaining and see how that goes.
Oh God. Okay, let's keep going here and start getting into some of these actual like KVK ones. Which do you want to start with here? We got stratagems, we've got artifacts, we've got tides. Which do you want to go for?
Let's start with stratagems.
Okay, so what do you think of stratagems? We played a KVK that allowed us to do this. If you're unfamiliar with stratagems, I do believe I have a video where we did a KVK with them. They're a lot of fun. It allows you to essentially pick different buffs that you have and carry them with you for a certain period of time. And it actually really diversifies the fighting because a lot of people pick different stratagems for how they play. What did you think of these?
Stratagems was by far my favorite KVK.
Okay. So what do you think? Should this be S tier?
I'm putting that at S tier. S tier,
Okay.
100%.
Let's do it.
What do you think?
I agree, although there's one on here that I also feel has to be S tier, but we'll get there. I'll keep my preferences to myself for now. But I agree. I think some of the changes they've made with the new KVK styles have been really great. My only caveat is like because they still have crystal tech in it, it does take away from the impact that these stratagems have, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
Because I think if they got rid of the crystal tech, A, it would make people more excited and in my opinion probably increase spending. But B, it would also have these new functionalities that they added that are so cool have more of an impact. But they don't. So that's the bummer.
I do
So
think that Stratagems was one of the most free-to-play friendly KVKs though in Season of Conquest.
oh, for sure, because they introduced a bunch of different ways for you to get new crystals. They had crystal cost
Mm-hmm.
optimization as part of it. Like 100%.
Yeah,
It was way more free to play friendly. So absolutely.
definitely.
What about artifacts?
Artifacts, I mean, I gotta put it either A or S tier. I thought that was a really cool way to, be able to use commanders that you maybe weren't going to be using that KVK. I think my Hookah Bing and YSG was trading like minimum 5-1 when I was using it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just so good. And
Attila
I think
Luce.
implementing that, Oh yeah, yeah, Luce too. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if was Luce even in the game when we were playing with
Yeah,
artifacts.
Attila Luce did so well for me. It was
That's right.
absurd.
Yeah, I don't have Attila, so that's why I wasn't using it.
Right. I agree. I actually am going to put artifacts as an A tier, and the reason that I want to do that is very singular. I want more of them. I think the
Yeah,
concept that you can only have one artifact, it reduces the fun factor because everyone's running 5 to 7 marches. And if I could actually play around and I can run Ho Chi Bing with YSG and I could run Attila with Luce and I could mix and match my marches, I could run Nevsky with Herman, right? I think that would increase variability in the field fighting, but I also think it would make things more interesting in terms of who you invest in or why you invest in them or what pairs you're running. And sure, maybe you bench a meta commander, whatever, right? I think it spices things up a little bit. And so it's A tier because I want more of them. If they had more of them, it would be S tier.
I agree with that.
That's my take. Chat, what do you guys think? Have you guys used artifacts? Are you a fan of them? Am I wrong? Do you not want them at all? Let's do one that I think we can finally get rid of something. Sovereign Keys and the legendary Tavern and Heart's Desire.
S tier.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right, so I will put it. I'll give you two answers. From a content basis, I will put it S tier because those videos do really well. From a practicality standpoint, I would probably put it at C or remove.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think content, people do like it. It is so evergreen. I can make 3 or 4 videos where I just open chests and people like it. That said, the Legendary Tavern rarely has commanders that I actually need, which is frustrating. And the other thing is you have to save up 200 of these damn keys in order to actually get 10 gold heads. And Heart's Desire is fine, like whatever. But the other thing is these keys cost 600 gems, I think, which is way too expensive for what they are.
Yeah. No, I think like they are very expensive. And I mean, I think they need to either minimize the amount of commanders that are just completely useless in there, or in just the regular Hearts or not Hearts Desire, the regular Tavern, they need to allow you to choose. Maybe it's 10 instead of 5. That way, you know, you're not getting like Moctezuma, like sculptures, because like I don't need this whatsoever, but I'm still getting it. I mean, like if you could minimize it to 10 commanders instead of however many are in there right now, I think that would be much better.
Right. If they just brought some of the Heart's Desire selectivity into it, I think that would make it better. I don't know. I know it's one of the only ways you can get Margaret, but I'm voting remove. If they want to revise it, maybe it'll make it to B or C tier.
That's
What about Tides KVK? We played that. I think you and I actually had differing opinions on it.
I'd probably put it B tier. I mean, I didn't like. I think it really varied on when the tides landed, because there are at some points where the tides were at like completely useless times, where it's like, okay, we can't even do anything here because there's no fighting, and we're missing out on an entire KVK's worth of attack or whatever the bonus was because there's no fighting. And our enemies are fighting and they're getting the buff and we're not. So we're kind of screwed because our enemies aren't fighting us, but our allies' enemies are fighting them. So they're getting the buff and we're not.
Right.
Also, like you have 2 hours to defeat 50 barbarian forts to get 10% march speed for the rest of KVK. You aren't online in those 2 hours. Well, too bad. You're screwed.
Right.
I think that's also stupid.
I agree. I think the time quests were frustrating. I also think that the whole alliance versus individual buff thing was challenging because it added complexity and it also made it so you could miss buffs, which I'm not a big fan of. And again, yeah, there were some things that I loved. It's like the fast burning of flags. That was so cool. You remember that? Like
I like that one.
That was great. But it only lasted the first time and then it was gone. And it was like, why? So I agree. I think it has potential. They should revise the KVK and take some of this feedback in because I think the more fun KVKs they can have as options, the more likely different kingdoms are actually going to register back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's what we have left. We've got VIP, we've got talents, we've got poison, we've got smite, and we've got ranged. What do you think?
Let's go Smite.
Smite? Okay. I know where I sit with this.
Ooh. We might be on different standpoints here then.
Okay.
I love Smite damage.
I think smite is S tier
Okay.
because
We are on the same page then.
yeah, because
I thought you were gonna say you hated it.
oh no, I love it. Well, I think it diversified the gameplay. Whenever things get too mundane, the game becomes less exciting. It becomes less interesting, and I think that smite damage has made things more exciting because you now have different commanders and different commander combos that you can start to use. I think that it also makes it so you now need different buffs, right? The fact that there's a smite talent tree is going to change everything. Like Luce Wallace's meta for ruins. I'm like, you're probably right, but I think it's S tier without a doubt.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
A smite civilization would be really cool. In fairness, you do have an Ottoman civilization which gives you skill damage, so I agree. Yeah. But again, this goes back to our whole civilization conversation.
They should add that there. Or normal damage bonus.
Yeah. There's no civ that has that, I don't think. You got counterattack damage with Vikings, but that's it. So. We got a few left. I want to finish with some of the more questionable ones, but let's talk about talents. Talents have been in the game since day one. Day one, you had skills and you had talents. No one makes videos on them. And I don't know that they actually do anything. What do you think?
I think it changes what commander has to be the primary in certain situations. Like, for example, I swear every single time I'm fighting and I'm using my Joan primary over Nevsky, everyone's like, why aren't you using Nevsky primary? I'm like, because Joan is better as primary in a murder ball. And they are always confused as to why, because they don't actually look at the skill tree. And so I would put skill tree at A tier, just because I think it changes how you actually shape your marches based on the skills that you have available or the skill trees you have available.
So you like talents?
I do like talents.
Interesting. Chat, what do you guys think? Do you guys like talents? I feel like I don't know.
What's your take on talents?
I think they're not diverse enough. Right? You've got the skill tree, you've got defense tree, you've got the attack tree, you've now got the smite tree. But if you look at the commanders that are in use, and you have the support tree, but if you look at the commanders that are in use, most of them are using skill tree today. And I think that the other thing you have is you've got this versatility tree, which is useless. You've got the peacekeeping tree, you've got the integration tree. Like there are a lot of trees that aren't viable. And for me, that sucks because, like, again, I don't want to have the same setup as you, right? I think that part of this game is being able to express yourself through the marches that you use and have different skills. I think that talents could have been a way that they could have done that. But again, not really. It hasn't materialized that way. So you said A tier. I think I'd put it in B tier.
I would bring it back. I would bring it down to B because you brought up a good point, which is the useless ones, like versatility and peacekeeping. Obviously, peacekeeping is great for barbarians and all that stuff. But when we were talking about open field fighting, I would agree. Like the useless trees, if they could like make those actually viable with something that's beneficial in there, I think people definitely would start to use them.
Right. No, I think that's the more variability they can add into the game, the better, so long as it's not luck-based. Let's do one that I think is going to be controversial. VIP.
I'm going to make you go first in this one, Chappie.
Okay. If you disagree with me,
you might lose a subscriber with Lambo here.
That's right. If you disagree with me, I welcome donations because I can be swayed by donations. I mean, if you guys get me to VIP 18,
money talks.
Exactly. I think VIP is like C tier, if I'm being honest. Like, I recognize the point of it. It's to encourage spending, and it does give you something to put gems into. However, and Lambo, you'll appreciate this one, I think VIP 18 is kind of dumb. Like VIP 17, the buff is worth it and it's worth pushing to, but VIP 18 is so ridiculously unattainable for most players. And I think that the buff kind of sucks. Like, if you're spending that much money, I want a better buff. Like, I recognize the point, but yeah, I don't know. I also think, like, Hannibal's the gift. They had VIP commanders, and they're gone. Mina and Hannibal. Who's using either? Let me know in the chat. Not me.
Hey, what about the Trial of Lost Kingdom?
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. That's a meta equipment set.
Yep.
So that's...
I would agree with you that the buff from 16 to 17 is far better than the buff from 17 to 18. And also just the attainability of it. I mean, I personally am still about 1.4 million VIP away from VIP 18. Like, that's almost double what I currently have. That's, I don't think I will ever hit that, no matter what.
I'm 1.2.
No matter, even if I get to 1960 GT, I don't think I will ever hit VIP 18. To be completely honest.
I agree. Well, I don't spend enough. So Gaines, where are we putting this?
You said C tier, correct?
Yeah, I put C tier.
I would probably put it at B tier.
Okay.
Just because I'm like maybe at like a B plus for VIP,
Okay.
and that's mainly because of I mean, I think the benefit of getting gold heads and equipment every single day after VIP 14 or getting 3 every day after VIP 14
That's true.
is fantastic.
I'll give you that.
I think that alone warrants at least a B tier, just because like if you only got 1 a day, no matter what VIP you were, even if you got 0 a day, like that would make the game so much harder. So
100%.
in my opinion, I would put it at B tier just because of the benefit you get. Even at VIP 14, which is I would say pretty easy to get for most even free to play players getting there. If you're actually spending, gems on that. I think it's definitely attainable. So I would put B tier just because the benefit you get from getting 3 gold heads a day and getting equipment every day is pretty substantial over the course of months and years.
Yeah, I'll give you that. I think you're totally right that the VIP gold heads is the redeeming quality here.
Yeah, and plus the equipment too, or not the equipment, the materials.
That's true. The materials are nice too.
I mean,
They
I'm
do add
basically
up.
getting at VIP 17. You're getting 3 of the what are they? The blue ones.
Yeah, let's see.
That's almost like a legendary every week. Is that math right?
Yeah,
Almost.
three equipment material choice chests, a gold key, 3 legendary heads. Yeah, so it's not bad.
That's like almost 1 legendary week.
Yeah, it adds up over time.
Yeah,
fair enough. Okay, we got 2
cool
left
kid
here.
Said I would get to VIP 18 no problem in 1960. There's no way I will ever be let into 1960.
No, they'll zero you on the spot without a doubt.
Yep.
We got 2 left here. So we got poison and we got ranged. Which do you want to do first?
Let's do poison and finish with ranged.
Okay. Poison is S tier. Changed my mind.
I think it's just besides when Herman was brought into the game, it was hard to use it. So I think with the implementation of Herman, I think it gets bumped up. But I don't know if I'd put it as S tier, just because there's really only one commander people are using for it, which is Herman.
I agree. I think the functionality of poison was so cool. Like, no one used Tamiris except for the whales. Lambo uses Tamiris. But no one used her. But that poison functionality was so unique and so interesting in terms of how it could change the dynamic for murder balls, for rallies, etc. I love the game mechanic of poison. I agree with you that Tamiris and Herman are it. And that's kind of a bummer. Because, like, even now, I love the poison functionality.
You know, it's kind of funny. I don't know if I've told you this, but when I used to play Ark of Osiris all the time, when I only had 4 marches, I would occasionally, this is probably stupid, but I didn't really care. I would use Richard primary with Tamara secondary, and I would go swarm rallies and garrisons with it, just to get the debuffs and the poison stacked on. And it actually did very, very well.
Yeah. Target the purple dot. That has been like huge. Because if you can actually find where the poison counter is, everyone's going to swarm that, even if you're not on comms.
Yep.
Okay, so where are we?
I'm gonna put A, just because it's hard. I'm not gonna say hard to use it, but it's not used enough.
Yeah, I agree. To my own dismay. We got one more. Mr. Siege is not here. He doesn't get a vote. Maybe he'll watch this and be like, what are you guys talking about? Ranged combat. What do you think, Gaines?
I think it has a lot of promise.
Because you think it's
Mainly
broken?
because I think it's too overpowered.
Okay, that's fair. Thought it was trivial. I thought it was selfish. You know, one person camps out a march. They're not in the combat. They're not really doing anything. They get good trades just by sitting there while everyone else fights. But having played through the new mechanics that they're adding with shifting gears, I think range adds a new layer that is really exciting to me. I think if we're talking about just V formation camping out Margaret, meh, I'd probably sit between C tier and remove it. But if we're talking about the shifting gears, like whole idea of, hey, you can have a sniping range, you can have any march can be a range, you can change skills to make them ranged, like that brings me closer to like a B tier.
I think we had a good time with ranged because we had basically unlimited resources and speed ups. I think that if what we saw with like all the ranged marches, basically making it impossible to even move onto a territory, like it took us 3 hours to burn one flag.
Oh, it was crazy.
In my opinion, is unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree. So where are we putting it?
I think they need to rework it a lot.
Are you saying remove it, Gaines?
What?
Are you saying remove it?
I'm not saying remove it. I think rework it.
Okay, so we'll put it like right somewhat below C tier. I'll put it in C so the people who really care about things being aligned are not.
I would say C tier. I think just because I think what you said is true as well about most ranged commanders right now. Like I used I mean, I'm investing into Siege too. So I am, or at least on my farm account I am. And I will admit it's like, yep, I'm just gonna park it there and collect kill points basically.
Yeah.
It's like not, I don't want to say not actual fighting, but it's basically not actual fighting.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's kind of it's cheesy. Okay, so that concludes our first one.
It's kind of like the open field version of cheeseburgering, in my opinion.
100%. Yes.
That's how I feel about it.
It's just cheeky.
People demonize cheeseburgering, which I agree, it's a stupid way to fight, but it's very effective. Just like ranged combat is a stupid way to fight, but it's very effective.
Yeah, I agree. Well, if you guys haven't already, do be sure to go check Gaines' channel out. It is linked in the description. He's awesome. You're probably already subbed to him, but if you're not, go check him out. Thank you all. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, do hit that subscribe button right over there, bottom right-hand corner, and hit the bell so you get notified when new episodes come out. Helps me out a lot, and it also makes it so you don't miss all the great content coming. Thank you all. Shappy and Gaines out.